What's up, everybody? I hope that George enjoys his theme song. So you want to get right to the core. So you want to know what it's all for. So you want to come off knowing more. Well, you better get hip. The podcast by George. So you want to get straight to the show. So you want to know what you need to know. You want to know what we're all here for. Well, you better get hip. The podcast by George. Podcast by George. Podcast by George. He knows what he's fighting for. It's podcast by George. Podcast by George. Want to know what we're fighting for?
Hello, hi, how are you? Welcome to Podcast by George. Well, this is our first full-blown, full political segment post-election. You know, we interviewed Dr. Steffen W. Schmidt right before the election, said we're going to get right back to him. Well, I was kind of thinking the thing would be over with. You know, the one thing, the wild card in all of this is that Donald Trump, honest to God, I mean, the guy doesn't seem like he wants to step aside. We got people like Chuck Grassley telling us that it's not over with yet. I mean, it's really amazing. Let's welcome him on in. Doc, welcome back to a Podcast by George.
Thank you. It's very frustrating, and our patience is being tried to its limits. But I think, I'm getting a little more optimistic. I'm seeing, Biden now winning Arizona, which is amazing. And I think, the needles are all pointing in the direction that Republican leaders and members of Congress and others are going to have to accept the fact that Donald Trump didn't win this election.
You know, Doc, in college, my minor, believe it or not, was political science, and I hope I wouldn't have been asleep in the back of your class, but you must be a little bit frustrated because you've been talking about this for some time. People really don't understand how this process works. They're starting to figure out the Electoral College and what that all means, and I've told my Democratic friends as an example, if you voted for Joe Biden in the state of Iowa, you may as well have not voted at all or thrown your vote in the street because of the Electoral College. All of Iowa's votes are supposed to go now with its Republican electors for Donald Trump via the Electoral College. But Doc, I wanted to ask you, I didn't even know, but as far as this concession stuff is concerned, in the stepping aside thing, it's kind of been formality in the past. It's kind of a decorum type of thing. It's kind of voluntary. And that's the problem when you got a guy like Donald Trump in there.
You're absolutely right. And we've been stupid, I say stupid, not understanding that the election isn't over or the counting isn't over, the winner isn't declared until the states certify the electors, and then that is sent to Washington, D.C., where the Congress then approves the electors and declares a winner. That's when the president actually has won. And what we didn't realize was there was all this stuff in between. Because right now, Donald Trump is sort of right. Who has declared Biden the winner? Well, it's the news media. It is a counting service that says, well, right now it looks like Trump just can't win Arizona. So we're going to declare Arizona to be, Biden. That's kind of weird. I mean, reporters from other countries have said to me, you mean the Associated Press and CNN and MSNBC, they're the ones who declare a winner right now before anything else has happened? And that's kind of the way it works here. The other thing, and let me share this with you, your viewers and listeners, then supporters and friends, should sit down right now, because it is possible in states where the legislature, both the House and Senate, is controlled by the Republicans, and where Biden presumably is the winner, those legislatures can certify the Trump electors and ignore the vote.
Right.
That is constitutional. They have the power to do it. The legislatures can declare a winner regardless of how the popular vote in that state went. There is even a question as to whether Congress, which, you know, the Republicans control the Senate and they have a significant number in the House, may not certify the Biden electors when the time comes to vote on certifying the electors. We could have a constitutional crisis like we've never seen before. And it is shocking to know that.
You know, I look at this Donald Trump guy, and I've always wondered all along, and you heard me talk about this on the podcast, is he too dumb or is he in on it? I mean, I just can't believe that the guy's this smart. He kind of just falls into things, including becoming president of the United States. I don't think he even expected that to happen. But this strategy, if you want to call it that he's employing of being confused about these results and not believing them and wanting to do recounts where it's obvious that he's lost, all of that seems crazy. But in the scenario that you've just described, it may really work out for him because these state legislators and the congressional representatives at some point may say, hell, we don't know. It's too confusing. I mean, we just can't seem to figure this out. So we're just going to do it this way. And because we're Republican controlled, we're going to vote for the Republican. I mean, I don't know that Trump's thought that out, but that's kind of what you're talking about.
It's not just Trump. He's surrounded by people who are clever, and Trump is clever. And Trump also is, you know, Machiavelli once said that the great leader, the prince, wins not because he's better and smarter, but because he never quits and keeps moving forward. And when he hits a bump on the road politically, he's going so fast that he goes over the bump and it doesn't stop him. And Donald Trump, you know, is going forward as fast as he can, throwing all the nuts, you know, for the squirrels to run after, firing all these people and replacing people in the national security agencies, the FBI, now in the center that certifies and does ballot security, firing them and replacing them with his supporters, his people. So raising the question, is he planning something unconstitutional, like maybe saying this election was fraudulent and you know, I'm going to continue to be president for the next 4 years because the enemies of the American people have taken over this country? We don't.
Well, and, you know, he got, what, 70 million votes, probably 10 million. Here's his, and his support hasn't changed. Hell, he hasn't changed. Here's the way that I look at it. He's got 70 million people to vote for him. About 10 million of those people are people that are wealthy, that got stuff, and they don't want to give it to anybody. They don't want to lose any of it. They believe that Trump is the best person to help them hang on to their stuff. Then you've got 60 million people out there that vote for him because they want to tear this up. This sucks. It ain't working out for them. It's never worked out for them. They're madder than hell about the status quo. And for whatever reason, even though it's been proven not to be so with the swamp in Washington and all that stuff, they view Donald Trump as the anti-establishmentarianist, if you want to call it that. So they're still there. They would actually go along with this stuff because what their goals are can still be accomplished by Donald Trump refusing to acquiesce. I mean, it fits.
Yes, and it doesn't matter that the federal government should have done a lot more to prepare the country, the states, communities, schools, hospitals for the coronavirus. It doesn't matter. Yeah. People don't seem to ignore the numbers, which are atrocious. And people are still, a lot of people saying, and I see them interviewed, these you know, funny little people saying, I think it's a Democratic plot. There's no such thing as a coronavirus epidemic. You know, it's the Democrats and the socialists that are trying to take over this. And it's like, go down to your local hospital and take a look and see. Ask the doctors and nurses. And you know, it's just shocking. The other thing is that the Democrats have not done a very good job. I mean, honestly, we've talked about this, and Joe Biden is way ahead. He's 5 million votes now ahead of Donald Trump, with the largest number of voters ever in the history of this country. But they haven't done a very good job selling whatever the Democratic platform, message, and future is to those 70 plus million people that are voting for Trump. So they lost the Hispanic vote in a lot of places. The numbers for women, there was supposed to be a big gender gap, blah, 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 blah. My colleagues, all of them very smart, liberal people who believe that, Donald Trump couldn't possibly appeal to women. Geez, I saw the numbers. The numbers of women voters is tied. Trump and Biden got about the same number. Now, suburban women and, women with a college education and stuff, that's different. But there was no gender gap in this election. And there has been in the past. The Democrats have done much better with women. The Democrats have to sit down and face themselves and have a come to Jesus moment. They've got to ask themselves, in Iowa especially, in Iowa, the Democrats are weak. They've lost at least two House seats, and there may be a third House seat where the vote is 25 or 50 votes between the Republican and Democrat in the second district. And my question to one of the Democratic leaders in Des Moines, she hasn't answered me, was, how the hell could this happen? How could it be so close in Scott County in the second district with Iowa City and all that a Democrat couldn't win there? My former student was the congressperson from that district for years and did very well and got a lot of votes. And now all of a sudden, a woman who has run for Congress, I think 3, maybe 4 times, is tied and looks like she's going to win. The Republican candidate is going to win. The Democrats are doing something wrong. We lost the Iowa caucuses because the party was so goofball and pretzel-like that they created this monstrous process that led to a huge catastrophe for the Iowa caucuses, which I will regret for the rest of whatever little I have left of my life, because the caucuses were a wonderful, interesting thing. They were elitist, they were unfair, they were sort of a straw poll, but they were still a great event, and the Democrats screwed that one up. And in this election, Joe Biden may be ahead, but not really. The Democrats really have lost seats in the House. They don't look like they're going to have, victories in the Senate, except maybe in Arizona. So what's going on? It's a tense moment, George, a tense moment.
Well, and I was a quintessential case study, and I know you're going to continue to be contacted by folks about Iowa because it really is reflective of this overall election. Here in the state, you have a Democratic stronghold with kind of like urban elites, but the urban poor are also on board with the Democrats by and large. But when it comes to the rural poor, those are Trump supporters. Those are people that are disaffected, that are not part of the rank and file of the Democratic Party like they used to be. So that has all changed. And like you say, the Democrats, really, they got to come to grips with the fact that they may no longer be looked upon as the People's Party. I mean, what a change in my lifetime. But now, the other thing I get asked all the time, I don't want to run, I know you've heard this too. I get questioned regularly by people that want to know, is there going to be a coup? Are we going to have a civil war? Well, wait. There's no civil war. And do you mean a coup by Trump refusing to step aside and draw this out as long as he can to get closer to 2024, to get himself back in a new election or a proxy, maybe even a relative or something like that? If that's your idea of a coup, I'm telling folks, possibly. And Doc, the idea that I wanted to run by you, I was thinking about it before we came on the air, because you've lived in other parts of the world where you have these rulers in exile, and they don't always have to be in exile in another country. They can be in exile in their own country. And I think in recent experience down there in Venezuela, we got this guy Maduro, a democratically elected leader. We got a guy down there that's what I call a CIA puppet that the United States would like to have instilled. Trump had him up for his State of the Union address, and he waved at the crowd and that type of thing. He's not duly elected. He doesn't have the popular support, but you've kind of got two leaders there. You got one guy that's in the the state house, so to speak, and another guy that's living out there in the boroughs. And I'm reminded of another guy that you're well familiar with, Batista. I mean, down there in Cuba, I think he died in Guatemala. A lot of people still wanted to recognize him as the leader during all the Castro years, even the Shah of Iran. Yeah. That guy, another CIA puppet that we put in out there. They kicked him out. He was in exile, and we wanted to recognize him for a long time. China has had this issue. Is there a possibility we could have that scenario here in the United States?
Why not? My students think that what we have now and have had for the last 75 years that's it, and it only gets better. And I kept telling them, or it can get worse. It can change. It is not guaranteed. History evolves, and you see countries that once were wonderful, blooming democracies and the centers of culture and finance. I'm talking about Lebanon. And all of a sudden, religion and tribalism and other things come in, and it is now a catastrophic disaster and hell to live in. It's possible for countries to degenerate. The classic is the rise and fall of the Roman Empire, right?
Yeah.
It rose. It was big. It controlled the largest territory, I think, of most empires in the world. And if you look at a map of the Roman Empire, wow, it was something else. It fell apart, collapsed. There are all kinds of things that could happen. I cannot predict. But I can tell you this, if you look at this mug, you see that thing that's there that says United States Embassy, where?
Yeah, Baghdad, baby.
Baghdad.
Yeah.
And you know why I have this? Because the United States built the largest embassy in the world, in Iraq. It's there right now, and it's useless. It was supposed to be, the George W. Bush and his idiot supporters in the State Department and the elites said, well, Iraq is going to be the engine for democracy for the Middle East. And once we do this and overthrow Saddam Hussein, it'll be an example to Libya, to Syria, to all these other countries, to Iran, and they will all want to become democracy. So we need a huge embassy in order to manage the democratization of the Middle East.
Disaster.
Well, President Bush, how'd that turn out?
Oh my God! Yeah, look at Iraq.
You can't even defend that embassy anymore.
Look at Libya.
And the reason I have this mug is not because I was there, but one of my students, an older fellow from Des Moines, a firefighter, was contracted to build the fire brigades for Iraq to basically bring modern firefighting to Iraq. And he was a wonderful guy. He gave me a lot of souvenirs from his time in Iraq. And he told me, Dr. Schmidt, they're called the fire brigades, but what they really are is the body collectors and the ones who hose down the streets when they're running in blood, when car bombs and other disasters occur. There are no fires in Iraq, but there are a lot of dead people, and the fire brigades are the ones that have to deal with that every single day. What a tragedy.
Well, let's hope we're not headed in that direction. The one simile that I see, and I think about this a lot, that Roman Empire thing that you're talking about, a lot of reasons the Roman Empire collapsed. Some of them are the reasons that we're not doing well in this country. Maybe the biggest was, though, their imperialism, their attempts to own the world, basically. They spent all their time, resources, money, all their treasure, and all of their blood trying to surround the world, basically, and they collapsed within. I mean, everything, that's what happened to the Roman Empire. And that I hope that is, my God,
but you know
what?
When you look at why a lot of people have voted, are voting, and still supporting Donald Trump, and I can tell you this because there are focus groups on it, is because he is not interested in doing that.
Right.
That's
what he promised anyway,
Well, Donald Trump has not gotten us involved in any new conflicts. In fact, he's begun to pull Americans out of places where we've been so long that there's nothing going to happen except maybe more Americans are going to get killed. There's this thing with the helicopter crash in the Sinai Desert where a bunch of American soldiers were killed together with this international group that's there to bring peace to, the Palestinians and to the Sinai Peninsula. And really, we're going to bring peace to a place that people have been killing and fighting each other for 1,000 years? Come on, you got to be a little bit skeptical of that. And we're trying to do that everywhere else. And now I'm worried because a lot of people are saying, well, finally, Biden will intervene and try to stop China from suppressing the democracy movement in Hong Kong. And I'm going, well, we're back to that again. I mean, Hong Kong is far away. It's kind of like Vietnam. It's far away, and our ability to get the Chinese government to respect kind of a British democracy in Hong Kong is pretty far-fetched, I think. Yes, we support human rights around the world. We've been moderately unsuccessful in promoting that in most of the places where we've pushed it. And we've gotten ourselves involved. We've spent a lot of money and lives in trying to pursue that. And so the question is, is Donald Trump sort of really kind of quasi-isolationist view of the world? We don't want to get involved in all these places. Another reason why some people support him. And I think the answer is probably yes.
Yeah, I'm the world's biggest anti-war guy. I mean, I'm a big peacenik from way back. I can't stand Donald Trump. The biggest thing that I say that he's killing us with is the climate situation. He's exacerbated that, and we're all going to die if he stays another extra minute. And he's probably harmed us to an extent that we can't recover from unless really big changes are undertaken. And this is where I want to leave it today. One thing I wanted to ask you about now, and this goes to the war situation in particular, and also in climate. Biden, immediately, he's going to want to roll back a lot of what Trump did. But Trump didn't take us from 2 wars to 7 in 8 years. Barack Obama and Joe Biden did that. What Biden needs to do and can do without congressional assistance, he can start to roll back war. He can start to he can withdraw from Yemen. Trump wanted to withdraw from Afghanistan, if you'll remember, in our Democratic delegation, including our representatives here in Iowa, one of whom just got defeated, voted against that, for God's sake. Well, those are and that's what I wanted to talk to you about, what executives can do through executive action on war and also on climate.
No, absolutely. I mean, Joe Biden can do a lot of things, especially, for example, restoring some of the primacy of moving towards renewable energy, solar power, wind power, geothermal, other things that are not damaging to the environment. The president can do a lot of things by moving policy and money from the federal government to do those things. And, if Biden is actually eventually sworn in, it looks like he's going to have a cabinet that is going to aggressively try to do that. And so that's the irony, isn't it? That Donald Trump, 4 years of bluster and incredible activity. And I love the way that he signs his name, like this, and then he holds it up on his executive orders. And I kept thinking, Mr. Trump, that is a piece of paper that, like many treaties in Europe that were worthless, they weren't even worth the paper they were written on. If a Democrat gets elected, poof, that's gone because it's an executive order. And executive orders are very transitory. They're like writing with invisible ink, it goes away. So Biden can do a lot of things, even if he doesn't have a majority in the Senate. Donald Trump has shown the path for how a executive can do a lot of things that we thought were unconstitutional and get away with it. That's the miracle of Donald Trump is he's discovered that the president has massive powers. And if the Congress doesn't, everybody said to me, the Republicans are not going to confirm his appointments to the cabinet unless they like those people. My answer was, did Donald Trump appoint a lot of people to his cabinet that the Senate would hate and doesn't like and would never have approved? The answer is yes, he did it because he discovered that you can have acting secretaries of this and that and the other, and there is no limit. There's no time limit. They can be acting secretaries for 4 years, for the entire term of the president. The Constitution is so damn stupid, George. They assumed that everybody was, the gentleman from this and the lady from that, and everybody was going to be, very polite about unwritten rules. No, that if you're tough enough, you're going to go, I don't need the Senate to confirm my cabinet appointments. Bernie Sanders is going to be Secretary of Labor. Did you see that? Bernie Sanders. You think the Senate is going to confirm Bernie Sanders?
Yeah.
No. Yeah. But Bernie Sanders, if Biden wants him to be Secretary of Labor, which is the rumor right now, he can appoint him as acting secretary, and he can be there for 4 years, managing labor.
Well, here's what I'll say in closing, and we're out of time. We got to wrap up. If Trump strings this out, what's really going to happen is that rattlesnake shake that is America is going to continue. His followers are not going anywhere. They're going to be at the throats of the other side. And this part that Biden wants with bipartisanship and the kumbaya and the reaching across the divide and, the healing of America and all that stuff, none of that's going to take place. And I mean, it's getting hairy out there, Doc. What's the next step here? Should we be looking for that December deadline for this elector voting thing in the states, or what's immediate?
I think
now?
that's a clear deadline when something has to happen. But I think that we're going to see more and more Republicans say, even Grassley saying, well, you got to let Biden at least have the intelligence briefings. And then others are saying, well, you got to at least let Biden and the Democrats have a transition team that is briefed on things. Because what if some foreign government or terrorists are planning an attack on the U.S. and the incoming president, who is probably going to be Biden, and his team are caught off guard on it, like we did that transition in 2000, which is one reason why the September 11 attack succeeded, is because there was so much chaos after the election of 2000. And that when the transition took place, the counterterrorism fell between the cracks, and we can't let that happen. The world is not any safer now than it was in 2001. So yes, look for that deadline. I'm still optimistic in a way that a few Republican senators who were insulted, demeaned, trashed, humiliated by Donald Trump are going to switch and vote with the Democrats in the Senate and support some of Biden's policies. There are at least 4 Republicans who must be filled with anger at what the Republicans and Trump did to them. They got elected after all, in their states, and some of them got reelected. And we're talking about Susan Collins in Maine, and we're talking about a few others. Alaska, Murkowski, and it may be possible for Biden to get some things passed in the Senate because some Republicans are going to want to bring back some sort of orderly stability. So we'll look for that as well.
All right, and as we close up shop here, I'll say also the thing I didn't get to talk about, but the media. We're about to find out whether Camelot still exists in this country, folks, whether or not the world of political science and government and the Constitution, all that, is that the rule? Is that what prevails? Or is this all just a reality show? Is this just a media circus now? And Donald Trump goes into exile as a leader and continues to do really what he's done all along. He's not going to, he's going to abdicate presidential roles or anything. He's going to sit on Fox. He might be on a television show. He's going to be on MSNBC and CNN every night because they hate his guts for the next 4 years. And he's going to sit out there and do what he does until 2024 comes around. And then what? We start all over again? My God, let's hope that's not the case. But if it is, it's a media show. And that may be the new reality.
And you and I will be analyzing it and checking it out all those years.
Yeah, I hope so, Doc. I hope we can hang in there, that's for sure, particularly in the world of coronavirus in 2020 and the 2020 world that we live in, which is, drawing to a close as far as that little axiom that I like to use. 20 minutes, we could all be dead with a nuclear strike. In 20 years, we'll all be dead from climate change if we don't make a change in the way we conduct business ASAP. Doc, thanks for coming on a podcast by George.
Thank you.
Steffen W. Schmidt, the Lucan Endowed Professor of Political Science from Iowa State University, and he is the co-author of American Government and Politics Today, this book right off my left side. And if you want to see everything that we just talked about, read about it, study it, learn about it, it's all in there. It's up to date. That's the current edition, or one of the most current editions. It has everything in there. I've been looking at this, and I was surprised to find that, everything from 2016 on, it's in this book. So that's going to wrap it up, folks. If you like Podcast by George, please view us on YouTube, subscribe to us there, and follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook and all of those places where podcasts are seen or heard. But that's all there is, and there ain't no more today. That's another podcast by George.